Hello, this is a relatively short video to take your quiz application a little bit further. What I've got here is the quiz that I had in the last video. Now bear in mind, this bears some similarity with your final quiz if you choose to do things my way. And what I'm going to do in this video is that I'm going to add something really important to it, and that is some questions and answers for the user to interact with, so that they can answer those questions and then get a score at the end. So the questions are integral to this application, and what I'm about to say here follows on from a presentation which is available on the Teams site, and something that I would have talked through with you in the webinar, and it will show the different ways that we can implement the quiz questions. To keep things simple, but not necessarily good programming practice, but to keep things simple, we have chosen to use a two-dimensional array to hold the questions and answers, and we will index through that according to which question that we're on to display the contents of that question on the form that the user is looking at. But that's for another time. What we need to do though is just create that question content. Moving directly on from my previous video in this series, you should have this quiz app here, and you should have public static class quiz variables. So this class is going to hold all of the variables that pertain to the quiz and its scoring. And I'm going to show you here how to put in a two-dimensional, and so that defines the nature of this array. Just as a reminder, public means it is visible to other parts of the program and code, just makes life easier for us. And static means that it doesn't have any kind of return value. So it's public static class, I will call it quiz variables, and notice again that I'm working in the Pascal case, and then I immediately just do the curly bracket and it pops it there. Because I'm going to adhere to a coding standard, just my own coding standard, to be consistent, I press return and that pops these brackets right underneath here on a new line, and then I go there and I keep pressing return, and this is just how I do it, and then I separate the brackets out and get ready to type. I've now got to set up some more information here. So I move to this point and I type public static string, square brackets there, and I'm going to put in a comma. That's the delimiter, the indicator that we're going to use to separate the different pieces of data in this array. I'm going to call this quiz content. You could just call it quiz questions, depending on your level of competence as a programmer. If you want to go ahead and name these items with different names, that's absolutely fine, but I've happened to call it quiz content, and I'm going to define that by saying it is a new string. Then I'm going to use these square brackets again, but to indicate that this is an array. If it was a one-dimensional array here, I would just say something like, oh, it's got 3 elements to it. But because this is a two-dimensional array, I've got to define the spaces that it occupies, and we start with the rows, as it were. If you think of it as rows, I will say that I have 4 questions to ask, so 4 separate rows, and each one of those rows is going to have 6 independent elements. So that's how I express it. And then the actual data itself goes into curly braces. So I just do my curly brace thing underneath here. Okay, I pressed enter there, and it's done an alignment there in accordance with my coding standard. And just before I carry on, just to explain again, as I did in a previous video, public means that this code is going to be accessible from anywhere else in this program. Static means that it doesn't have a return type. And here I can write the questions. I do another curly brace and I start writing the first question. These are trivial questions and I'm only writing 4 of them. What is 9 cubed? So that's the actual question. Then I separate with a comma according to a standard that I've already worked out, and I'm going to put 4 answers. Notice the use of quote marks as well. 9, 81. These are the answers that they're going to be confronted with. Please remember, of course, one of them's got to be right. Otherwise you're a very mean person. And there are the 4 answers that will appear on the form. Finally, according to the standard, the pattern that I set out in the PowerPoint presentation, we have to have the right answer, or correct answer I should say, and that follows there. The braces are closed, and I'm just going to get rid of that gap there because I would rather have this all on one line. Okay, and there's the first one there. There's lots of red lines and grumbling, but there shouldn't be a big issue with that if I now type comma and then start writing another line with my curly brackets. And this is the second question. So in terms of array dimensions, that there is the first dimension of the 2-dimensional array, and this is now the second one. Just going with my standard silly questions here. What is 6 plus 3? Use the comma as a delimiter, and then we go with the answers. Whoops. 2, 9. I'll say it again. One of them's got to be right. Otherwise, you are very bad and very mean. Okay. And I type another comma because I want to put in some more elements. I'm just going to pause the video at this point and put those in so I don't. Okay, so I've typed in the 2-dimensional array there. I've got 4 of my silly questions, and the red error line has disappeared. That's because I made a typo, so please, if you're checking this through, can you just make sure that you have got a quote mark there. I had one missing there and then it was throwing the whole thing off. And you can see that because of the built-in tools in Visual Studio, see, I've recreated the error there, it is expecting certain things, and it's doing some hard thinking for you there. And if you actually click on that error, of course I can't find the exact error now, but it's concerned there because it's not counting the right number of elements in the array. So make sure that you've got all your quote marks in place. So there we are, 4 questions, 4 answers, and the correct answer in a 2D array, and you will obviously add your computing questions to that. But that's the end of this video, so thanks for watching.